I'm a storyteller and I write stories as well. And here is Teddy. Now, maybe you've seen Teddy looking out the window, waving to all the children who walk past when they're getting their exercise. Well, we live at the top of a very windy hill on the coast of County Down in Northern Ireland. And every day I read some stories to Teddy, and we were wondering if you might like to listen to them too. So if you're snuggled up, cozy and warm with your teddy bear, we'll begin. I'm going to start with one of Teddy's favourite stories. This is called Teddy Bear Farmer, and it's by Phoebe and Joan Worthington. So are you all settled in, Teddy? Ready to start? Here we go. Once upon a time, there was a teddy bear farmer. He had a tractor, a dog, and a housekeeper called Mrs. Moffat. The teddy bear farmer got up very early in the morning and went to milk his cows. He gave them their food in the manger. And then the teddy bear farmer sat on a stool to milk them. Swish went the milk into the bucket. Swish, 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 swish. He took his turns of milk in a trailer to the gate in the road and left them for the milk lorry to collect. Then the teddy bear farmer went back to the house to eat the good breakfast that Mrs. Moffat had cooked for him. After breakfast, he let the hens out of the hen house and gave them some corn. Then he went to feed his pig and her little piglets. The teddy bear farmer and Mrs. Moffat thought they were very nice. Next, he went to the field to feed his calves. And then the teddy bear farmer went to the market. He bought a nice brown and white cow and her calf. After lunch, he tossed the hay over in the little meadow so that it would dry quickly. Mrs. Moffat helped him, and the work was soon done. The teddy bear farmer collected the eggs and took them to the dairy. Mrs. Moffat was making butter into pats to sell. There was a knock at the dairy door. A boy had come to buy 6 brown eggs and a pat of butter. He paid the teddy bear farmer 10 pennies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It was getting dark. The teddy bear farmer went round the farm to shut all the animals up for the night. He shut the hens up very carefully in case a fox came looking for supper. The teddy bear farmer was very tired. After his bath, he took his Coco up to bed and looked at pictures in a book, just like we're doing. And soon he was fast asleep. And that's the story of the teddy bear farmer. Well, if you like that one, maybe you'd like to try a little game with your teddy. So do you know the rhyme, round and round the garden? All you need to do is take your teddy bear's paw and your pointer finger, and you're going to make little circles on the paw, and you're going to pretend that your finger is a teddy bear. And I'll say it for you once, and then we can try it together. Round and round the garden goes the teddy bear. 1 step, 2 step, and tickle you under there. Would you like to try that with me? I'll count to 3, and then we can do it at the same time. 1, 2, 3. Round and round the garden goes the teddy bear. 1 step, 2 step, and tickle you under there. So Teddy, did you like that? Well, maybe it's time for another story. And we were thinking that because it's almost Easter time, that we'd have a story with a rabbit. And I've picked out one that I think everybody knows, this is the tale of Peter Rabbit. So, I know you like this one, Ted. And here is how it starts. It has the most beautiful drawings as well by Beatrix Potter. Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in a sandbank underneath the root of a very big fir tree. Now, my dears, said old Mrs. Rabbit one morning, you may go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there. He was put in a pie by Mrs. McGregor. Now run along and don't get into mischief. I am going out. And then old Mrs. Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went through the wood to the baker's. She bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather blackberries. But Peter, who was very naughty, ran straight away to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. There he is, sneaking in. First, he ate some lettuces and some French beans, and then he ate some radishes. And then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley. But round the end of a cucumber frame, whom should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting out young cabbages, but he jumped up and he ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling out, "Stop! Thief!" Peter was most dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way back to the gate. He lost one of his shoes among the cabbages and the other shoe among the potatoes. After losing them, he ran on 4 legs and went faster, so I think he might have got away altogether if he had not unfortunately run into a gooseberry net and got caught by the large buttons on his waistcoat. It was a little blue jacket with brass buttons, quite new. Peter gave himself up for lost and shed big tears. But his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows, who flew to him in great excitement and implored him to exert himself. Mr. McGregor came up with a sieve, which he intended to pop upon the top of Peter, but Peter wriggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind him, and rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a can. It would have been a beautiful thing to hide in if it had not had so much water in it. Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, perhaps hidden underneath a flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each, and presently Peter sneezed, achoo! And Mr. McGregor was after him in no time, and tried to put his foot upon Peter, who jumped out of a window, upsetting 3 plants. The window was too small for Mr. McGregor, and he was tired of running after Peter. He went back to his work. Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath and trembling with fright, and he had not the least idea which way to go. Also, he was very damp with sitting in that can. After a time, he began to wander about, going lippity-lippity, not very fast, and looking all around. He found a door in a wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. An old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorstep, carrying peas and beans to her family in the wood. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she couldn't answer. She only shook her head at him. Peter began to cry. And then he tried to find his way straight across the garden, but he became more and more puzzled. Presently he came to a pond where Mr. McGregor filled his water cans. A white cat was staring at some goldfish. She sat very, very still, but now and again the tip of her tail twitched as if it were alive. Peter thought it best to go away without speaking to her. He had heard about cats from his cousin, little Benjamin Bunny. He went back towards the tool shed, but suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe. Scritch, scratch, scritch, scratch. Peter scuttered underneath some bushes, but presently, as nothing happened, he came out and climbed upon a wheelbarrow and peeped over. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was turned towards Peter, and beyond him was the gate. Peter got down very quietly off the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could go along a straight walk behind some blackcurrant bushes. Mr. McGregor caught sight of him at the corner, but Peter didn't care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last in the wood outside the garden. Mr. McGregor hung up the little jacket and the shoes for a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Peter never stopped running or looked behind him till he got home to the big fir tree. He was so tired that he flopped down upon the nice soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole and shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost in a fortnight. I'm sorry to say that Peter was not very well during the evening. His mother put him to bed and made some chamomile tea, and she gave a dose of it to Peter, 1 tablespoonful to be taken at bedtime. But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had milk and bread and blackberries for supper. And that's the end. And that's all our stories for today, but I'll just show you one thing that we're going to do next. Now it's April, and it's getting a little bit warm outside, and Teddy has his flower pots already, and we have 1, 2, 3. And we've got some seeds. We have lavender. Can you hear it? And these are my favorites, I think. Foxgloves. So we're going to go out into the garden very soon and see what we can do with the seeds. But first, before we do that, it's tea time. So we have the teapot all ready and a cup for Teddy and a cup for me. And we'll say goodbye now, but we'll see you again on Wednesday. Enjoy the stories.